What is going on, guys? Thanks for tuning back into the channel, and on today's episode I'm going to be giving you an update on my 1968 Wheelhorse Charger 12. The last time I even gave you an update was the first startup of this engine, and a lot of this stuff was not done. It was pretty much just a chassis with an engine on it, and the rear end was pretty much complete, because I didn't really mess with that too much yet. So let's get into the basics here, and first thing you can see right off the bat is there's now a hood on it. So just what sounds like a simple task was not. It would not even clear my valve cover here on the stock mount. So what I did was I cut the stock mounts off, and then I welded a new mounts on, and I cut these out of plate. Pretty much just cut it straight up, pretty much same shape as the original ones, but I just raised them up about an inch. So the original ones would have been flush here, and as you can see, these are up a little bit. And I welded them on, and then figured out where I needed my pin. So I drilled the holes there for the pin, and then the hood worked and everything, but it would almost go and touch the ground, so I didn't like that. So what I did is I drilled 2 holes here, and I was able to put 2 bolts through with nuts, and they worked perfect. As the hood stopped, as you can see, it hits the nut. So they worked perfect, and now as you can see, our hood stays open and does not touch the ground. So then moving on down to the motor mount, as you guys know, this was all yellow in the first startup of it, and I only welded it from about an inch on either side. So this time I welded it the whole way down. You can't really see because of these guards, but it's welded the whole way down on both sides, and then ground smooth, and it's primered and painted. I just sprayed it International Harvester red, which will probably end up being the color of this tractor because you cannot get Wheelhorse red anymore, but it'll probably be in this color. I just spray painted International Harvester red, and the paint did not dry long enough because I did have a fuel leak from the stock line, but I switched the line out, and now there's no fuel leak. So if you get one of these engines, you might want to be aware of that. Your fuel might leak out of that line, but anyway, because it is a pretty poor quality line. But anyway, this plate is all welded and smooth, and you can pretty much not even tell it's welded on from the side angle. You can of course see the top welds there, but nothing much. So then moving on to my throttle setup here, what I had to do is cut it off. This piece was flush with this. Wasn't that zip tie the other way? So then I just cut it, and then I ground this down and welded it. And the weld is terrible. For some reason it didn't want to stick, but I finally got it to stick. So probably end up grinding this weld down and putting a nice pass on there, just making it look good. So this is like a reproduction style Wheelhorse thing, and obviously this is just kind of like a prototype kind of setup. So obviously my cable is like way outside the hood, and I just have it zip tied on there. So I didn't even cut the zip tie because I wasn't even sure if it was going to work. But anyway, it does work, and it goes into the stop position, and when I pull it out, it goes all the way to full throttle there. So I can shut the tractor down from the seat, so that's nice. So the throttle setup does work, and I'm going to have to figure out a permanent solution to this, and probably not pinched on the line there, because that can mess up a couple of things. So we'll have to figure out another throttle setup there so our cable can stay in place but not be pinched on the line. So then moving on, let's give you the dash point of view on the throttle. It's just kind of like a Wheelhorse reproduction throttle, and you just pull it out, and you get more throttle, and you can lock it into place and unlock it just by turning it. So that's how the throttle works on this. So after I got the hood mounted, I moved on to the exhaust and the air intake, because the big exhaust that was on here pretty much exited right about here. We'll get to what this is later, and that would not clear the hood. Also, it would just like pretty much blow back into the dash and then into your face and all that. And then the big ugly air box that was on here before obviously would also not clear the hood. And if you guys search up 10 horsepower diesel garden tractors, you'll see that pretty much everybody has cut their hood to fit that factory air box on. But I did not want to do that because I think that's pretty ugly, just like a big black box sticking out of your hood. So I didn't like that. And also I knew it was a diesel, so I had to put a stack on. So what I was able to do is the stack actually does clear the hood just barely by like a 1/16 of an inch. Anyway, this is a 2-inch elbow coming up to a 2.5-inch pipe, and then with an exhaust clamp. This exhaust clamp is going to be going. This is just temporary. I'm going to get one of those nice band style clamps, I guess. And then I had to make a custom flange, weld it to it, bolt this thing on. And I'm gonna have to be cutting this weld off and welding it back because it just really annoys me how it's about like a degree or so off and it's not perfectly straight. So I gotta fix that, but I'm also probably gonna end up cutting the pipe down to about here somewhere, just cutting about 3 or 4 inches off and making it a 45-degree miter because it is a little bit tall for it, but not bad. Move on to the intake that I have way too much time onto it. So what this is actually 2 separate pieces of pipe with a piece of angle iron cut at a 45 and a piece of plate there just welded on, so for a flange to bolt on. So pretty much from here to there, right where my hand is, that's a piece of 2.5-inch pipe that's just straight, and then I have an elbow welded onto it, and I was able to actually pretty much smooth that out pretty good. If you run your hand down, you can feel right where the weld is there, but it's not bad. And I topped it off with a nice, like, black glossy pearl paint job there, and it looks really nice. Other than right here where I had to weld this piece onto it, so that just pretty much just burnt the paint right off. This has like 3 coats of paint and like 5 coats clear, and if the sun was out you'd really see it shine, but you can't. But anyway, this is a piece of a 2-inch angle iron dropped into here. It's welded the whole way around, and it's cut at a 45-degree miter, bolts up perfectly and no air can get through. So this is airtight. I've did the old test with a flashlight, see if you could see any light through. Nothing came through. And then I have a little bit of body filler right there just to smooth out that transition from the pipe to the weld, and looks really good. And then I put a cap on it. This is 22 gauge sheet metal, welded the whole way around again, also airtight. And then I put like a K&N style air filter on there. Got this from Go Power Sports. It was like $10, so and that works perfect. So this is exactly how I designed it and how I wanted it to go, right on top of the starter there and underneath the hood. I did have to trim the hood just a little bit, like a 1/16 of an inch. You can see right there where that black piece is. That is only temporary as well. Once we get into a little bit warmer weather, I'm freezing out here right now, I'm going to be taking that piece out and then kind of arching this in a little bit and making that so it's nice and smooth and pretty much flows with the whole thing, and I can take that black plastic or rubber off there. And also you can see right here I have these 2 cuts, and that was because I was originally going to put the black airbox on. I was about to cut the hood right there where the Sharpie marks are, and I caught myself and I just couldn't do it. So and I would have ended up having to make even a bigger cut, probably all the way down to this D and drive out, just so it would clear the hood the way this thing closes. Or sorry, it would be to like the S, just the way the thing closes. It would have to be a massive cut in the hood, and I did not like that. You can see everyone else's builds, they cut the hood out like that, and I cannot stand that look. So I had to come up with a custom intake, and I've only seen one other guy come up with a custom intake on these engines, which is Sprocket's Garage, and he just had an ammo can coming out, which is alright for his build, but this build it would not fit it. So I had to figure out a way to make a custom intake and all that, and so I believe I'm the first one to build a intake like this for this engine. If you've seen anyone else do this, let it down in the comments, but I'm pretty sure I am the first one to make a custom intake like that for this engine. And again, this tractor will be getting completely painted, hopefully here in the summer, but maybe not, because I got a big build planned for that, so you'll have to stay tuned for that one. But let's continue on to the tractor. So moving on to one of the hardest parts for this thing was trying to figure out where I'm going to mount a battery to crank it. So I knew I could get away probably with the biggest lawn tractor battery, which is like a 425 cold cranking amps, to crank this engine over, because this thing's got insane compression. It has a compression release you got to activate before you can even pull it, because if you try to pull it without that, you'll pretty much tear up your shoulder real quick. So I wanted to mount the battery inside the hood, but it just didn't look like that. So I even started building this battery box, which is pretty much why it's totally all finished. The corners are all nice and stuff like that, and all ground down. This was originally going to be going in front of the tractor, like a weight kind of, where the battery was going to mount, because I could not figure out a way to mount it under the hood. down there I wanted to mount it, but that's where my hitch lever is going to go. Also, this is not tall enough, and I wanted to mount it here. There's not enough space there, obviously, and I just couldn't think of a spot to mount it. I was thinking maybe under the fender, but I got the transmission fill there, and it wouldn't fit there either. So I pretty much was out of options, I thought, until one night I was thinking, and I came up with an idea just to notch out a right angle in this side and take out the tray where the original fuel tank would have mounted, which I wasn't using anyway. Take that tray out and then put this battery box in its place. So I notched a right angle out of this support here, weld the battery box in, and attach that gas tank tray with these Charger 12 side panels. So I cut that off, and the sheet metal that they originally used on that tray, I did not like how many cuts and stuff they had in it. So I used my own sheet metal there and welded that to the Charger 12 thing, and just put like a 1-inch bead, 1-inch bead, let it cool, 1-inch bead, just so I didn't warp it, because if you lay a bead down the whole thing like that, in MIG, you will just totally warp it. And then I took some angle iron, cut into about 1-inch pieces, welded to it, drilled a hole, and I was able to bolt it completely through the battery box. So this is like really sturdy, and the battery box is also really sturdy. So that's where I will be mounting my battery. Still probably going to end up cutting like holes in it with grommets so I can run my cables through. And I have not decided, but I might put a stainless steel top on it. Probably not now that it's underneath the hood, but that was the original plan, to put a stainless steel top on it, but I did not. One of the last things I did since last video was extending the belt guard up, and that's because this engine sits a lot higher with this pulley. This is a 5-inch pulley on it. It sits a lot higher than your standard Kohler 12 horsepower that was in here originally. So I had to cut another piece of sheet metal out, extend it in. This is not totally finished, it's totally flush, but there's, you can see there's a little bit of shadowing there. So I think that'll actually come out when well, I'm going to have to probably lay another pass on there and grind it smooth, but for now it's fine. I just wanted to make sure it would clear everything, and it pretty much does. I got to put like a belt tensioner again on the belt, just because it's stretched out a little bit, and everyone says Kevlar the belts don't stretch, but they do. I can prove it. I've stretched many Kevlar belts out. My racing mower, I stretch that out pretty much all the time. That's pretty much going to be it for this episode. I have a couple things coming, but I don't want to, reveal everything in this episode. So this is what it looks like from the dash. Got the key mounted. Obviously, it's not hooked up to the battery, but when it is, when I turn it, it should crank. And this is the throttle setup is. And these two, I'm probably going to be putting things for lights in, because my lights are not hooked up. But that is one episode. That's another thing for another episode. So that's going to be the end of this video. So stay tuned for the next update, and updates on a couple other things, because a couple other things happened, and you guys will definitely be seeing videos on that, and they might be going to be pretty interesting compared to this one. So stay tuned for that.